I recently sat down with Carson Conant, the CEO of Mediafly. Carson founded the sales enablement and content management company way back in 2006, and it's now a powerhouse with clients like PepsiCo. In recent months, Mediafly has expanded by acquiring three leading companies, Alinea, iPresent, and Presentify. No doubt, Carson is one of the top leaders in our industry. Here's my interview. Carson, it's great to talk to you again. I always enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, me as well. Thank you, Nancy. I look forward to this.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, obviously, that there are a lot of changes going on right now. Virtual selling is the way of the world right now. Competition is fierce, and it's really impacting how we sell. I know Mediafly is a company that really helps with all types of aspects on improving the impression that a seller makes on a prospect. And I wanted to just talk to you about how can companies really differentiate themselves from their competitors today? We're all kind of in the same experience. We're all bombarding our prospects. We're all having Zoom calls with them. How can we differentiate by, let's call it the sales experience or maybe the buyer experience?
So I think to your point, the world has changed. I see such a difference need, and not only in the way that the sellers engage the buyers, but the way that companies engage sellers, right? And actually one of our customers, PepsiCo, said, so many of the sales, the tools that our reps are expected to use they're nothing like the Instagram and Netflix and TikTok and Disney and what he said, the weekend experience, right? And so we end up looking at that and really leaned into that idea. And if you look at a lot of the applications that are proliferating the sales organization, they're very dry. And if they're a seller gets in, does what they're supposed to do, and gets back out. It's not stimulating an intellectual curiosity to dig around. And I think so that creates a real challenge for, particularly in the remote world, to really engage and guide and influence sellers, right? So I think that's a first challenge. And if you can't engage and guide and keep them up to date with the latest and greatest, then how are you expecting them to then be more engaging in this world as well, right? So I think it all starts with that, of creating kind of this weekend experience for the sellers. The next thing then is how do you help to I think kind of more to your point, which is how do you help the sellers create a weekend experience with their buyers? And I think that's done through more engaging, interactive, and animated content. I think it's done through more a flow of the conversation that can go where the buyer wants. I think it leverages a lot more value kind of enablement side of things so that you can quantify the value in real time. And to your point, I think video, right? I think, you've seen some great solutions. I'm a big fan of Loom and Vidyard, and we've built some of this functionality in the Mediafly as well. But I'm seeing so much more asynchronous selling. So it's how does a seller send something to buyer or in this case, a team of buyers, where it has the context and the personality of the seller, right? And so if you send something as a presentation or a PDF or a link, it loses that, right? And you don't get as much time face to face or even on Zoom with buyers anymore, right? And you might be talking to one person, there might be 7 people involved. So if you can send something over that has a little video talking head that while you're interacting with the proposal or something like that, it has so much more personality as it gets passed around inside the company. So we're seeing a lot of success with companies that are leaning in more towards that video aspect.
Well, let me ask you about this talking head concept, because that's kind of new to me, right? I mean, I know you've got the talking heads when there's an asynchronous, I guess, communication, right? When we're just talking to one-on-one with the person. What would a talking head look like? How does that work when it's just you're sending something to a prospect?
Yeah. So we launched a capability called Copilot, so imagine sending a proposal to somebody, right? So typically what happens is you've had the discussion, you'd love to take them through this in real time, but with larger and larger buying groups, more often you might take one person through and they say, great, send me the proposal. And then, so I might spend 30 minutes with you walking you through the proposal. I give it to you and you forward it around as a PDF to the 10 other people in the buying meeting who lose all the context that I took you through, right? And so there's no personality, and they open up the PDF and skip right to the how much does it cost slide, and like that's the extent, if you even know what they did. So what we've seen is we've taken this concept of being able to record a little talking head as you go through the proposal, and then you send that to the prospect or the customer, right? And you say, hey, I created this little Copilot video to walk you through the proposal. Feel free to forward this around. And the reason why we call it Copilot is you can switch from the Copilot mode to manual mode at any point in time. So the recipient of that can then say, all right, I listened to the little video from Carson talking about the proposal. I'm going to switch now into the actual document. So I can click around within the document. So you're not limiting somebody. So if you were to send something through Vidyard or Loom or something, it's stuck as a video, right? And so then you almost can annoy other people. They're like, I don't want to listen to the whole video again. Where was that minute 2 minutes and 30 seconds where they talked about the pricing? So this concept of being able to provide really rich context to things. And we've seen, we've got early customers using it now, and we've been using it for a few months. And you really see the engagement go way up. So we've seen times where our sellers would send a couple of emails out and get nothing. And then they send a Copilot and they see 3 people open it. And so, and not only we know from tracking, we know they open it and they spent 3 minutes or 6 minutes viewing it. We know which parts they spent time viewing. And so it just creates this personality that you wouldn't otherwise get, I think, from even interactive content can lack that personality.
That's true. So let's talk about some of the use cases. You mentioned that, hey, you can send something over and then they skip ahead to the pricing page, or they just want to get to net it out because they don't want to go through a boring proposal or presentation if they don't have to. And I think also what happens is that reps will try to pack as much information in as they can because they know they don't have a chance to explain it or describe it. And that makes the problem even worse.
Yep.
So the use case you're talking about is saying, hey, let the video narrate a briefer, proposal or something that, because that you're there in the room with that person. Yep. What are some other use cases for adding video to something that you might present to a prospect?
Great question. So we probably see about 6 different use cases, I think. So one is the one you just mentioned. Another one is this concept of sending out kind of like advanced material. So let's say you've got some light engagement with a customer early on. And so rather than saying, can we jump on the phone? Can we do this? I'm going to send you a Copilot video of me talking through the solution, or maybe I've done a little bit of research. It just comes across with so much more personality. And we've seen companies like Vidyard doing this for years. I think the key is bringing it closer together with the content and the interaction, so that I'm the seller and I'm saying, look, I'm taking you through a couple things here, and let me know if this is interesting. I'd love to talk to you. So that demand generation or kind of early sales cycle piece is something that I don't think is super unique, but it's certainly powerful. Another place is customer success. I think a lot of times post-sale companies, they don't have the same, they don't get access to the same tools that the sales team does, right? So, it's like after the deal's done, it's a whole different set of tools than what the sales team gets. But we see a lot of times where announcing a new feature or announcing a new enhancement, would you rather get an email that every product, the product team sends out and every customer gets the same one? Or would you rather get one that your customer success manager said, hey, Nancy, I really think you're going to like this feature. Remember, we talked about this. Look at this capability here. So again, it's areas where it adds personality. Probably a very kind of micro example. We use it now for all of our investor communications. So similarly, I would send out a quarterly investor brief, and I would see everybody skip right to the financials. And that's a very important piece, but you're missing so much context, right? And so now I send out these Copilot videos and I watch, what do people look at? And they spend the time on the context, right? And so I think it's this context and personality element, right, that are really key. We're even seeing customers using it, and this is probably maybe unique to tech, but they're using it actually to log tickets or provide feedback. So rather than trying to describe in a lengthy email, hey, I really wish your solution could do this at this place in the reporting engine, they're just recording a little video and saying, hey, it would be great if I had a little button right here that could do this. I think it's, there's a lot of people that are like, it doesn't take quite as much maybe refinement if you're doing it in video. There is a piece that we want to add, which is to remove filler words, because I know you're probably seeing it already. I am terrible at ums and ahs. So I want to have a button that can go through and cut all the ums and ahs out, which is not part of our feature yet, but something I want to add.
That's great. That would be good to have for live conversations. It just immediately kind of mutes the split second.
Yeah. Oh, God, I wish I had it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. I have some of those tics myself. What you're talking about feels to me like it could be the birth of a new form of communication that becomes standard, because we have email. We used to just do an online meeting with the phone. Now we do it with video. But what you're talking about could become a standardized new form of communication that could really shorten, I don't know if it would shorten the sales cycle, but I could see where it might, because it can communicate more effectively. It certainly would differentiate you, especially now if your competitors aren't using it and you are. How do reps get good at it? Because not every rep is probably comfortable with video or recording a video, which is somehow different than just talking to someone on video.
Yeah, you're right. It does take a little bit of work. I do think this is where content helps. Content is a crutch. I know I'm not a natural speaker, not a natural salesperson. And so good interactive and animated content, that weekend experience, does become a crutch. So if I'm a seller and I'm trying to talk to you about a new feature, I think people are more comfortable if they've got a little bit of a backdrop of something they can click on and kind of give you you can have some animation there. So I do think that's one thing. So it's not just me and my face, and that's the whole story, right? So that's one thing I think. The other thing is one of the things we did when we built Copilot was we made it so you could record it in scenes and in takes. Like, so you could record, a couple minutes or a couple pages and then go back and redo it as much time as you want, and then lock that in, and then you do the next piece. That way you don't get 7 minutes through and be like, oh God, I screwed up and I got to go redo the whole thing. Or worse, you get 30 minutes through. So you could do things in kind of scenes and takes. And then what's also nice about that is you can reuse those in different contexts. So let's say I did a really great scene here about describing this new feature or something. I might use that in other Copilot videos with a different lead in, right? So I think some of those things will help a little bit. It's a little bit more sophisticated, but I think most people are not natural speakers. I really notice when people are good speakers because I really struggle. And so I think some of the capabilities need to help, I think, people who are not natural. So either through kind of backdrop content or through just things like the removing the filler words or being able to do it in scenes and takes, I think helps.
You made me think about, since you can do it in different takes, does that mean that you could have the CEO of the company record a message that can be used over and over again, maybe in the intro, or you could bring a subject matter expert in to talk about one slide. So in a way, you're getting different people involved in that messaging to the customer.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually why we called it Copilot originally, was the ability to have other variations besides just it being a video, right? So for instance, our thought is that every piece of content has Copilot videos associated with it. So that there might be one for me talking about the vision of this, piece of content. It might be our solution, engineer who knows the solution really well, or might be our CTO talking about this. So eventually it could be something where I'm sharing with you an idea or I'm using, product as a lot of the content, but it could be a success story, right? So a good example, it could be, rather than sending you a success story, which is 3 pages, maybe it's got a Copilot video from the customer, right? Or from our head of customer success, right? And so that's why we originally called it Copilot. So I might send this to you, and there might be multiple Copilots that you could select from. So you could either say, Nancy, I'm sending you this video. You can hear me talking about it, but if you really want to hear, you can switch to our CTO and he can be your Copilot going through this content. And so for that same story, you can switch between multiple Copilot people, personas, right? So that's phase 2. We haven't launched that piece yet, but that's the vision of where we're going with. And I believe that's, to your point, the rep shouldn't have to redo, or the seller shouldn't have to redo what somebody else might have already done and done really well, right? So, and actually I got this idea from one of my mentors who was the head of sales for Amersport, and he was talking about the Solomon. They had some new things coming out with the Solomon line, and he said, I wish that until the salespeople knew the talk track, they could use my talk track. And so this would give you the ability to do that, right? To say, look, there's a brand new set of skis come out. I actually don't know that much about him yet, but let me send you this video that's from our head of sales, right? And then eventually you might pivot, and as you become a more expert, you might not need that, that crutch anymore. But I think it's a real powerful thing to have those expert personalities there.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. There's so many things that are going through my mind and how you can use it and internally too. I think you might have alluded to this, but like product marketing where you could send something out and explain it to the reps. And there you go. And it's not something where you have to bring everybody together. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there seems to be a lot of use cases.
Yeah, and you've seen, video has been used widely in the readiness solution. So all the major readiness solutions have video for doing like coaching and training and peer review. And so I think that's an awesome use case for it as well, right? And we're actually seeing this as, I wonder if Copilot now starts to have a readiness kind of a component to it, right? So it's not a far stretch of saying, add the ability to have peer review. I just did a presentation of this. Can I get some folks to give me some feedback? You bring some machine learning in to say, look, you shouldn't be using these words. You shouldn't be using those words. So, or you should be using these words for this particular presentation. So I do think that there's an opportunity there as well around just that overall coaching side of things. And I think it's proven that at least a lot of folks that I talk to, they would much rather do that sort of thing than go through some sort of lengthy certification where you got to listen to the video and take a test. So anyway, so I think there's so many different use cases for video. And it's kind of ironic because we came from the video space. TV and movie studios are still our customers. They use us for, distributing TV shows and movies and kind of a sales and kind of for your consideration context. And so we've always had this strength in video, but we're really now using that strength in kind of a sales enablement context, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's exciting to hear about the new ideas for video. And I love the idea of overlaying it on top of content to make that more explainable to multiple decision makers, especially that you can do it in chapters or different groups of it. So you're not having to re-record and you can leverage previous recordings. So that was great. I wasn't expecting all the fun things you talked about on the video side. There's something else that I want to talk to you about, and that has to do with the complexity of sales today. I just mentioned the multiple decision makers. Sales cycles kind of seem to be going longer because they're multi-threaded. There's a lot of activity. We've got conversation intelligence. So now we've got data coming from there, data coming from what reps enter into CRM, data coming from content usage, which I know you're quite familiar with because you've got a sales enablement solution. How are sales leaders to make sense of all that data and to make use of it in a way that can change the outcome of business?
Yeah, so I think it's a really great question. I think I wouldn't say I have the total answer. I tell you, but what I'll say is we believe very passionately in it, and it's an area that we're heavily focused on. And so what I'm seeing is you have these, the sales cycles of 5 or 10 years ago were probably more linear, right? So I know you could probably extrapolate more results from this many deals are in this stage, and we've got this % chance of closing this. And I think the whole world just changed in the last 2 or 3 years. It was already going that way, but I think COVID definitely just caused a big challenge. So I think budgets became harder to get a lot because of the Zoom world. A lot more people are involved in the buying decision where maybe they couldn't get together in a room. So, okay, we're not going to bring this person in. Now everybody's remote. So it's just, you're just a link away from adding 5 more people to the discussion. Right. And so I think, part of the complexity for sales managers is just understanding first, what are all the signals going on? Right. It's no longer just, I've got this relation with Nancy, I'm confident she's going to buy. I now have to, if I'm a sales manager, I now have to feel confident that all the people that are around Nancy that I might not even know are involved in the mix are also leaning in. And so fortunately, a lot of these signals are, they're email based, they're who's attending calendar, who's visiting on your website, looking at things. What does the intent data show from companies like 6 Sense and demand based, right? And so we believe that all this stuff has to live together in one place, and you have to be able to use machine learning to figure out for a particular company or a particular sales motion, what is a pattern that looks like good versus bad, right? That you can't rely on the rep as much anymore as maybe you used to be able to, and you can't rely on just a couple data points like have we talked to X number of VPs, right? And so I think what we call it Revenue 360 is our solution in this space. You see similar things in Clary and People.ai and other things. But the idea is, how do you bring every signal, so email activity, calendar activity, the Zoom, sort of meetings that you have, how do you take the actual content that was presented? What did they look at on your website? What was shared? And what does the intent data look like? How do you bring all that into a single score that is either declining or increasing or low or high? And then you allow sales managers to start to review their sales pipeline based on those data points, right? So if I'm meeting with you and you're my sales rep, let's look at your pipeline based on, the lowest account energy or declining account energy. And then let's double click in there and see, are you sharing a bunch of content with them? Are you sending a bunch of emails and they're not responding? Like, why is this scoring low? And then really using machine learning to help identify where those gaps are and what are actions that the sellers and the managers could take. So that's our view is you have to get all the data together in one place. You can't have disparate sets of data, and B, you have to use machine learning to bring it all together into a single trend line for during the sales cycle, but then also after the sales cycle.
I see. Right. That's the part about what does success look like, or what does good look like. Mm-hmm. And so the machine learning can start to learn from all the different combinations of activities and content and duration or engagement, what have you. Yep.
And what's interesting too is you think about content. There's no magic piece of content. Like if you use this presentation, you're going to win the deal, right? But our hypothesis is there are times to use certain pieces of content, and statistically speaking, companies that buy quickly or buy at the right pace typically engage with certain type of content. So and I think so if you were to break content down into like we have about 10 categories. So it's like this is challenge content, this is evidence, kind of success story content, solution, discovery type content. We believe that you look at every account and opportunity, and you look at, has this customer engaged with enough discovery content, enough evidence content, whether it was they viewed it on your website, whether you talked about it, whether you shared it, whether they, whether you presented it. But at some point, they have to engage with enough of the different elements. And that's where I think the machine learning comes in, right? So it's are the right people involved, is the right interaction, and are they engaged with the right type of content to feel like, statistically speaking, will this deal turn into a deal that closes? And so I really think the data scientists, have their hands full over the next couple of years, because there's so many signals, which means you can pull out the trends, but you really need to get everything in the same place. And a lot of companies, a lot of solutions don't play real nice with their data. It's hard to get, there's a lot of solutions that are trying to own it, right? And they're trying to say, no, like, some of this conversation intelligence solutions are saying, we're going to push a minimal amount of data out. You need to use our solution. And then you have some of the, you've got account-based marketing, you've got marketing automation, you've got other things. Everybody's trying to be that single source. And so it is hard to get everything in one place unless you just trust that one of those companies are going to do it.
Yeah, you're making me think that maybe there's also another use case, which is to learn or compare the white space in an account to what kinds of content is being presented, or whether or not a product is being talked about. So can you use that kind of system for product management purposes?
Absolutely. I think so. You think about if I'm a customer success manager, I might say, every company in, let's say for Mediafly, I might say every company that's in the tech space, we need to make sure that they understand this new capability. So I talked about Copilot, right? So, how do I know, right now it's okay, I got to go tell all my reps, can you please talk to all of our customers about this? But it'd be great if I had the ability to say, let me ingest every phone call, all the Zoom meetings, all the content that they've shared, and what that account's looked at on the web, and say, show me all my accounts on my team show me all the accounts that have not engaged at least X score with content related to Copilot. And then let's go back and say, look, customer success rep, sales manager, marketing automation folks, like let's make this account does not sufficiently understand this solution. They haven't engaged with the content. They just can't know it, right? And so that's a very specific example. But if you take that over, a lot of, the pace of innovation is happening so fast, right? And so if you're an innovative company, you're launching something new every single month, right? If not every single couple of weeks. How do you make sure which accounts know and don't know? And I think to your point, being able to profile something like that, I think is a really valuable thing. And it's something I think that a lot of post-sale companies would, customer success, customer support would really love to be able to have that data.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then I think you mentioned marketing automation. So you could say, hey, we need to send out a campaign to these particular accounts or contacts.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then, that's the holy grail is some of these things start to be automatic, right?
Yeah.
That's what everybody wants.
Yeah.
And I think it's where we'll get to. I just think the solutions need to play nice with their data. And we need to get all the data together and into one place.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've learned a lot of new innovative ideas for how to differentiate. I think it's very exciting what you're doing with Copilot and even bringing together all the intelligence so you can upsell and cross-sell more efficiently and make sure that you're servicing the customer right. I might end our discussion today by just asking you, what are you most excited about in the next 12 months?
The things that I'm most excited about is seeing this data come together, and we're already seeing it. And I'm just the kind of awakening that I see when you have this stuff together. It makes selling easier. I think it makes sales management easier. It helps alleviate some of just all the chaos and confusion that's going on in this Zoom world. So I'm really excited about more companies seeing what we're doing there, because it's inspiring to me to use it with our own teams, and I'm excited about it getting out there for other folks. And you can, when you first launch things in kind of a beta standpoint for your own standpoint, they can have a little rough edges. So I see where it's going, and I'm really excited to have it have the full market polish that companies can use it. But just that whole data approach to forecasting and all that data living in one place, I think everybody's going to be excited, and I'm hoping it'll ease some of the just frustration everybody has these days with just data overload.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you have a lot of marquee clients that I'm sure are anxious to try this if they haven't already, and to start to implement some of these new ideas. Well, listen, thank you. As always, it's a pleasure. I could talk to you all day long. It's a pleasure to hear your thoughts on all the new and exciting things happening today.
This is awesome. Thank you. I always love getting together. Some of these things are always in my mind, but you don't get a chance to fully talk about them until we have one of these. So this is great.
You bet. All right. Thanks,
Thank
Carson.
you.